John in Ohio, pronouns are he, him, is an agnostic, but wants to say or argue, and hopefully not just joke, that God exists because people say he exists. So how does that work, John? Welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you very much for taking my call. Yeah, so I'm going to say that God exists because humans say he exists. And I guess like the way I kind of think about it is, so, there's, several billion Christians in the world. There's large churches built. People give 10% of their income. And there's cathedrals built. There's the Crusades. All these things in the world have happened. And world events have been shifted because people believe in God. And, how can such a group of people have so much control over world events based on just saying this guy exists? So I guess that's the crux of it. Because
how does that?
Whoa, way worse than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. So if a bunch of people get together and say, we believe humans are instilled with inalienable rights and we are going to work together to protect those inalienable rights, does that mean that inalienable rights actually exist?
That's basically what I'm saying. Yes, that's correct. So I think
no. That's not what makes something exist. Just like it's not what makes something right. If people got together and said it is morally permissible to own other people as property, does that make it morally permissible?
I think that goes to absolutism versus relativism. So I definitely agree that owning other people is morally wrong.
I didn't ask that.
Justified that. I'm sorry.
If a billion people on the planet decided that Lord Voldemort was real, does that mean Lord Voldemort is real?
I guess in that case, well, I see that's a good point though, because you can't actually see Voldemort, you can't observe him. So because everyone says he's real, as we think of him in the movies, he's not real because you can't.
You can see him in the movies. You can see him in the movies.
Yeah, I think the difference with the God argument is that people say, "Oh, God is everywhere. Oh, you can't see God." Oh, God is defined as something that you can never see.
You do realize that there are billions. You do realize that there are billions of people on the planet who don't agree on the definition of God. They don't all think God is X. So while there are billions of people who point to some God, they're not all pointing to the same God. So by your argument, the God of Christianity is real. The gods of Hinduism are real. The God of Islam is real. The gods of any other religions are real.
Yeah.
Before people believed in the God, was he real?
I would say no. So I guess I kind of would say no with that, and also your.
So how many things come into existence? How many things come into existence just because a lot of people believe they exist?
I think there's no exact quota of that. If I think
I'm done.
I mean? So I think
John, all right, John, let me try a slightly different set of questions.
Yeah.
Functionally, in this world, you're suggesting that if enough people believe, but you don't know what the quota is, then the thing manifests in some sort of reality. What about a world where, so let's say it's 2 billion people believe in God, just as a number to pick. I know that's not the number. 2 billion people believe in God. What is different about this universe where you say God exists as a result than another universe where 2 billion people just actually believe in God, but that God isn't real? How are those two universes different?
There's no functional difference in that.
Right.
Case.
So why would you say which one of those it is?
I guess that's why I kind of the person introduced me as agnostic, because that's kind of
right. I get that, but I'm sitting here going, you can't tell the difference between a universe where God is real and 2 billion people believe in him, or a universe where 2 billion people believe in him, but God isn't real. You don't have a mechanism, but you come down on the side of that you think or you are proposing, or maybe it's a possibility that creating, which also flies in the face of all of the things which did exist in constant states before somebody believed them. So you seem to believe in a universe where lots of things exist without anyone believing in them, right? Presumably you believe in planets that haven't been discovered by anyone, right? That they're there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's not when someone believes that they're there or discovers them, or even some version of that from simulation theory that you accept, right? You think that they are
simulation theory
physically there. What's that?
I think simulation theory doesn't make any sense.
Sure.
Yeah,
well, simulation theory, there's just no reason to accept it because it's not been demonstrated to be possible yet.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that'd be the better reason not to accept it. I more think like the amount of things you'd have to simulate.
Right. I don't want to go down simulation theory, but
okay.
Yeah. Let's stick to this one. You do believe there are planets that no one believes in and no one discovers.
Yes.
Okay. So the universe doesn't require belief in something, but you're suggesting that in addition to the things that are already there without anyone believing that can be discovered, that there could be something that isn't present, but a sufficient force of people with not an exact quota that you understand needs to be met, but a sufficient force of people believing will cause that physical reality to shift with many undiscovered things to accommodate the existence of this thing, even if this thing is some supremely incredible universe-altering thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess another example.
No, I don't need another example. I'm going down a line. What is it?
I think that makes sense.
Okay, cool. So let's say I'm one of those 2 billion things. So if we were talking about a computer or something, we could say I'm one of the people putting in my USB drive and it's running my belief program. And once enough USB drives get plugged in, the thing, it completes the program and the thing pops into existence. Okay, so the metaphor is the USB drive. What's the non-metaphor? How am I transmitting that belief to the universe?
I think that goes to, like you're essentially like everyone's trapped in their own mind, like the brain in a vat thing.
Sure. Everybody experiences their own reality. However, we try to figure out what our common reality is by testing those things we all have in common, right? Those things that are exterior to ourselves, those constants, those numbers, those things that exist, whether we're the one who measures them or not. So that's not what I'm asking about. I'm asking, I am somehow plugging in my USB drive with the portion of the program to make the God real. What is the actual physical thing doing that? What is the mechanism?
Oh, okay. So I'm sorry if I'm misunderstanding your question. So I think that would just be your brain, wouldn't it? Because your brain believes.
But what is my brain is self-contained. How can my brain transfer a belief exterior to me? It's so much so that when combined with other people's, it manifests something into physical reality.
So I think in that case there wouldn't be a mechanism for it, because I think like some understandings of God is that there's no physical there's no physical reality part of God.
Excuse me, John, you said there it is a physical reality that we all got together and created God. Whether that God is then measurable in physical reality is not what I'm asking. I'm asking about the metaphor of the USB drive. What physically am I doing to plug the USB drive into the computer that then creates the immeasurable program?
Okay, I think that, so sorry if I'm not getting it still, but I think so if two Christians talk about God and talk about their experience with God, that's like the closest thing I could think of to the USB drive, because like God doesn't physically exist, but two people are talking about it as like a concept that exists. And so in that conversation between two people, they have like a shared reality. God exists.
They have a shared perception of reality, but reality isn't that.
Yeah.
Reality isn't perception based.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. So I
So
think,
if
but that kind of like,
so, does
the brain is a
God
bad
actually
thing.
exist exterior to the people who believe him? So let's say the 2 billion people who believe in him. Let's say I just kill them
Yeah.
all right now. Does that God no longer exist?
Yeah, I guess if you killed all of them, and then you got rid of every record of God, and got rid of every record of people talking about God, then he no longer would exist.
So
That's right.
all you're
Because,
talking about is a conceptual God. There's not an actual you. We gave you that out at the beginning of the call, and you stuck with this that basically they are being magicked into reality. That's not.
yeah, I think it's similar. So the Bill of Rights analogy was a really good one, because enough people, because like we know the Bill of Rights is not a physical, like it's a document, but the concept of it is not a physical thing. But we can talk about it,
John,
and when we say the Bill of Rights, people know what we're talking
if
about.
let's go with 1 billion people believe that
Yeah.
a man flew off on a winged horse and ripped the moon in twain, something like 1400 years ago. If they all believe that, external to themselves, did that event happen in history? Actually,
No.
then we're not
Because-
talking about God existing. We're talking about a concept of God. And holy crap, we just took 12 minutes to discover that you believe that people believe in God.
Oh, okay.
Duh.
I guess, well, like, yeah, I guess, but I think like religion in itself. So I apologize if the premise was bad, but
That's
guess,
the conclusion.
that, yeah. So I guess like sorry if that was a little bit goofy to talk about, but I think I appreciate your example of it, like, because like conspiracy theories, like enough people believe it, but that doesn't mean it's real. But I think because like God doesn't have a physical form, so because
What difference does
there's
that
no actual
make?
physical form.
What difference does that
The only
make?
difference is the main difference is that you cannot like there will never be an observation that will convince a Christian that there's no God.
Excuse me, Christianity
Oh my
literally
God! Now
does have a physical
now you
God.
went to Christianity,
Yeah.
where
Physical
Jesus walked the earth as God.
Go to Mormonism
Okay, so
next.
So you
Okay.
completely skipped out on the notion of God, made a broad declaration that God has no physical form, which is completely separate from whether or not God could be observed. God can do, generally, in the classical theism thing, anything he fucking wants to. The only thing that matters here,
Yeah.
John, is does something come into actual existence merely because some portion of the population believes that it exists? And the answer is not, as far as anybody could tell, and it's patently absurd to think that it could work that way, because half the people might believe in one thing and half the people might believe in another thing, and those two things would be mutually exclusive, which means they cannot both exist at the same time, which proves that your entire bong hit theology is bullshit.
Okay, I think that makes a lot more sense. So I guess that's also like the whole agnostic side of it, because I grew up super extremely Christian. Like I went to a mega church. All my friends were Christian, and it was a big part of my life growing up.
But this isn't a basis for like sound agnosticism.
Yeah,
It's not a basis for sound anything. It's literally just like sort of like, enough people believe in God that even if he doesn't exist, he may as well, which in that phrasing I wouldn't
Yeah.
agree with, but with something tangential I would, which is why we do this show, because the impact of people believing in God is clearly measurable and impactful. Well, to say the impact is impactful is redundant, but
yeah.
I think
like with that, like,
I think you need to go back and watch the call again after this and recognize that I think earlier in the call you were playing with some concepts and live action came to some different conclusions and sort of maybe unintentionally, maybe subconsciously switched what position you were actually defending. Because there's parts of the early call that I feel like aren't actually very compatible with the later portion of the call. But go ahead with the last statement. We'll let you go.
I'll definitely watch this back. I guess like I didn't really have a final point, but I think this all three, I guess.
Cool.
So sorry about that.
No, you don't have to apologize. If you're saying it helped you, then the call was worth having. And hopefully hopefully there are other people who are also. John, I just want to say, I hope we get to chance the smoke weed together someday, because clearly you have the good stuff. All right? Is that okay?
Oh my gosh, I actually haven't, but
sure. Okay. Yeah, me neither,
Yeah.
John. You're in Ohio. I get it. I'm in Texas. Me neither. All right. Talk to you later, John.
All right. Thank you so much.
It reminds me of a William S. Burroughs quote. That is, Brian Grissom has a bedtime story. It seems that trillions of years ago, a giant flicked grease from its fingers. One of those gobs of grease is our universe on its way to the floor.
Hello, I'm Jimmy Snow, executive producer for The Line and avid candy eater. Hey, if you'd like to support this channel, you can do so now on Patreon or as a channel member with tiers specific to supporting specific shows and hosts. And it also supports our ability to expand programming going forward. You could also leave a super thanks down below, get a little special highlighted comment, and I'll tell you what, you could hit like and you could hit subscribe. Now, here are some video suggestions so we can fudge that algorithm. Go with one of ours. Forget everyone else on YouTube. I'm begging.